It's not every day you come across a masterclass in screenwriting like the Northman. Robert Eggers truly delivers a fantastic Viking epic of revenge and bloodshed in the style of a Hamlet homage. To start with, we are introduced to our characters in the form of a return from battle that a young Amleth experiences. His father, the king, returns from some fight he's been in. We get to meet the supporting cast for the rest of the movie, including Amleth, his father, the king, his father's bastard brother, Fjolnir, the king's wife, and Heimer, the fool, played by Willem Dafoe, masterfully. Amleth's father takes him aside to undergo a sort of coming-of-age ritual. They sneak away at night and drink a potion along with the fool, undergoing a psychedelic trance in which Amleth and his father promise each other that if Amleth's father is ever slain in battle, Amleth will avenge him. Shortly after this, Fjolnir, who we were introduced to earlier, Amleth's father's bastard brother, slays Amleth's father in cold blood. Amleth narrowly escapes with his life, and we flash forward to what now Amleth is a Viking raider. While out on a raid, Amleth remembers his vow in an encounter with a shamanistic figure and decides that he will stow away with a shipment of slaves to Fjolnir, his father's bastard brother and killer's settlement in Iceland. It's on the boat ride over to Fjolnir's settlement that Amleth meets and develops a relationship with Olga, who seemingly has mystical witch-like powers. Olga is also a slave en route to Fjolnir's settlement, and Olga and Amleth make a vow with one another that, combining Olga's cunning with Amleth's strength, they will take down Fjolnir together and secure Amleth's revenge. Amleth and Olga arrive at Fjolnir's settlement, where we find out that Fjolnir himself has been usurped from the throne he stole from Amleth's father. Fjolnir, the original usurper, now lives as a simple farmer in Iceland with his family. But he also owns slaves, so he can't exactly claim the moral high ground. Amleth secures a place for himself on Fjolnir, his father's killer's farm, and begins plotting his revenge. Amleth begins using his cover as a slave by day on the farm, and at night he sneaks around uncovering new tools he will use to take down Fjolnir, his father's killer. Using his cover as a slave by day, Amleth begins to plot his revenge. He encounters Heimer the Fool in the form of an exhumed skull, who, in another psychedelic scene, informs Amleth that Amleth will be able to take his revenge upon finding the Sword of Legend. Amleth uncovers the sword after undergoing a test of will and is finally ready to take his revenge. However, upon attempting to kill Fjolnir, Amleth is unable to unsheath his magic sword. Decide that when the time is right, he will kill Fjolnir, his father's killer. Amleth begins to haunt his father's killer's farm as a specter of the night. He does this by sneaking out at night and enacting brutal killings in a ritualistic manner of different members of the farm in order to scare Fjolnir, the target of Amleth's revenge. Amleth, upon revealing himself to the wife of his murdered father, his mother, who is still living with Fjolnir on the farm as his new wife. Amleth and the viewer learn that the plot to murder Amleth's father originally was masterminded by the wife of Amleth's murdered father, Queen Gudrun, Amleth's mother. Queen Gudrun, Amleth's mother, also reveals that she never loved Amleth, as she was originally taken as a slave by Amleth's father. Amleth as a character at this point is knocked down and gets back up with Amleth realizes that Olga, the slave he originally met on the way to Fjolnir, his father's killer's farm, is pregnant with his progeny, twins. Knowing that his twins will never be safe while Fjolnir, his father's killer, is at large, Amleth goes back to fight Fjolnir, sacrificing his life, but defeating Fjolnir in the process and securing a future for his children. Going back to the beginning of the movie, the first thing that jumps out at you is the literary nature of this dialogue. The screenwriting is immaculate in that it makes you feel like you are partaking in the world building alongside the director and writer. The dialogue is short and succinct, lending it a primal feeling, complementing the movie's themes. You have to remember, this is literally a movie where you're watching characters undergo psychedelic rituals where they take on the aspect of animals. The cohesion in this movie is top-notch. Furthermore, when characters do deliver long bits of dialogue, it's always in an emotional way, and it's never boring to listen to. One of my biggest pet peeves in any story, movie, book, you name it, is when exposition is unnatural, forced, and seems to just drone forever. Not so in The Northman. Characters have moments where they get to monologue, but the monologuing is dramatic and raises the stakes and the tension for both Amleth and the viewer. I'm particularly a fan of the natural inclusion of Shakespearean elements, like a soliloquy where Amleth reflects on the fact that it's not time for him to kill Fjolnir, and quite literally talks to himself to make this apparent. And it works because the screenwriting and acting is that good. Speaking of acting, while I haven't always been a fan of his performances in the past, Alexander Skarsgård does stand out here as an emotive and troubled Avenger. So props to him for that. Surprising no one, the cinematography of this movie is also a home run. Almost nothing in the movie looks ordinary, and very, very many of the scenes take place in what look like picturesque three-point landscape paintings. I think if I were to offer any criticisms, my only one would be that the marketing for the movie didn't make it exactly clear what you were going to get when sitting in the theater watching it. Which is itself very minor, but I was a bit disappointed when I didn't get a full-length movie that was basically just the scene of Amleth raiding with his Vikings in the first 30 minutes of the movie. Now, as I'm making this review in 2025, I can definitely say this is one of my favorite movies of all time. Any misconceptions I had with the movie at its release were definitely washed away by the fact that I felt I owed it to Robert Eggers to pay him back for The Witch at the Lighthouse. All these years later, I'm glad I did, and I can definitely say that this movie is a strong recommendation from me, because I love the risks it takes. Thanks for watching, and remember to fortify your dreams by keeping a strong reading habit.